Good afternoon. Welcome to our second week of Period 6. And again, we are looking at problems which arose from the assessment that we did. This actually is a topic that we covered quite early in Year 10, but it's a really common question and it crops up in a variety of different forms. So today we're going to talk about ratio sharing problems and look at the different ways that they crop up in exams. As always, there's an attachment and you need to have that in front of you, either in class or at home, and we'll be working through selected questions from that sheet. So let's start off by talking about where ratio sharing comes from. So imagine that two friends invest in a company and they start a company together, and let's say those two friends are Bill and Fred, and that Bill invests £4,000 and Fred invests £12,000. Okay, so it's not fair if at the end of the year they share the profits 50-50. Clearly Fred needs to get more profits than Bill. So the first thing we need to do is decide how they're going to share them, and this is where a ratio comes in, because the ratio of the amount of money that Bill and Fred invested is 4,000 to 12,000. Now, if I divide both sides by 1,000, that's 4 to 12. And then I note that I can divide both of those by 4. So it's 1 to 3. And that process is called cancelling or simplifying. And it's like we do with fractions, isn't it? As long as you divide both numbers in the ratio by the same amount, you're okay. So Bill and Fred invested money in this company in the ratio 1 to 3. The order is important. 1 is Bill's number, Fred has 3. Fred invested 3 times as much, so it's only fair that he gets 3 times as much. So at the end of the year, they have £20,000 of profit to share, let's say. So the company's done really well. They've made £20,000 profit. They need to share it down. Now, there's a number of ways of doing this. I like to use a sort of bar model approach, but I know there's several other ways. So Bill gets 1 share, Fred gets 3 shares. Most important question is how many shares altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 shares. So we need to say, first of all, let's divide that by 4. So we know each share is £5,000. So this is 5,000, this is 5,000, this is 5,000, and this is 5,000. So we know that Bill gets 5,000 and Fred gets 15,000. So that's the most basic sort of ratio sharing problem. And so see if you can have a go on the sheet at A1, A3, and then A4. Okay, so in A1, the amount of money is shared in the ratio 1 to 4, 1 share, 4 shares, 5 shares altogether. So we need to take our total and share it, divide it by 5, so that's 12. So each share is worth £12, so one person gets 12, one person gets 48. In A3, we've got 3 people sharing money, but it's the same. We've got one person getting 3 shares, one person getting 1, one person getting 4. 8 shares, so we need to take the total and divide it by 8, which is 25. Each share is worth 25, so we get 75, 25 and 100. Question 4, far more like the sort of exam question you would get. There's a bit of context, so we're talking about 2 people, Chris and Maddie. 3 shares and 5 shares, so again we've got 8 shares, so each share is worth $15. And I've been really careful because it says how much do they each receive. I've stated my answer really clearly. I did all the sums, but then I've clearly stated my answer. Okay, so here's the second sort of question. It is another ratio sharing question, but it's not the same as the ones we've just done. Let's look at it carefully. So we're told that in a particular school, the ratio of boys to girls is 5 to 3. Now, the order is important. It says in the words boys first, then girls. So that's the boys' number, that's the girls' number. So I always put a little letter above each one to help me remember. There are 35 boys. how many girls? Now, again, there are a whole raft of ways you could do this. So if the way I'm about to show you is different to the way you do it, doesn't mean you have to use my way. If you've got a way that works reliably, that's fine. So I'm going to do my bar model again. So I've got 5 shares are boys and 3 shares are girls. And I know that I've got 35 boys. So I don't know there are 35 in total, there are 35 boys. And there are 2 questions. How many girls? How many students in total? And you always have to be careful that you read what the question's asking. Is it asking you how many of the other sort or how many are there in total? Hopefully with my picture you can see where I'm going to go with this. If there are 35 boys and that's 5 shares, then 35 divided by 5, each share is worth 7, and that means that these shares are also worth 7. So I did 35 divided by, not 8 this time, but by 5, because 35 is the number of boys. 35 divided by 5 is 7. So I know that each share is worth 7, so there are 21 girls. So if that was part A, my answer to part A would be 21 girls. And if that was part B, how many students in total? Well, it's 56. 56 people in total. So on the sheet, could you have a go at C2, C3, and C4? Okay, so in C1, the ratio of girls to boys is 4 to 3. So boys is 3 shares, and there are 75 boys. So divide that by 3, each share is worth 25. So we're asked how many girls? 100 girls. C2, flour and fat, 4 to 3, and there is 90 grams of fat. So each of those shares is worth 30. So each of these shares is worth 30, 120 grams of flour. C4 was a tricky one. So the ratio is 2 to 4 to 5, and we're told the longest side is 15. That must be this side, the biggest share. So I've drawn my diagram. This is 15, so divide it by 5. Each share is worth 3, so every share is worth 3. And we're asked for the perimeter, so that's all the sides added together. So that's 2 lots of 3, that's 4 lots of 3, 5 lots of 3. We've got a perimeter of 33 centimetres in total. So here's the third different sort of problem. It looks very similar. They're sharing some money again. It's my old mates Bill and Fred. But this time they don't tell us how much either of them gets. They just tell me that Fred gets £450 more. It's just got dark, so I'm going to put my light on. Hang on a minute, there we go. And the question is, how much does Bill get? So I'm going to draw my picture. Remember, the order of the words is important. So Bill is getting 2 shares, and Fred is getting 5 shares. And we're told that Fred gets 450 more. Well, he's getting 3 shares more, isn't he? He's getting 3 shares more than Bill, so those 3 shares must be worth 450. Divide 450 by 3, and that tells you that each share is worth 150. And that means all the shares must be worth 150. And you need to be careful with these questions. What does the question want? Does it want how much money altogether, or how much does the other person get? How much does Bill get? Right, he gets 300. So I'm going to clearly answer that. Bill gets £300. So have a go at D2 and then D3 on the sheet. But then also, as a bit of an extension, have a go at D1, which is a slightly different sort of question. See how you get on. Okay, so my heart sank when I saw D2 because of the numbers involved. You could perhaps do it without drawing the picture. Some of you might have done that. I've drawn the picture anyway. I used circles rather than squares. It was a bit quicker. But it's obvious, isn't it, that with 2 extra shares, and that's telling us there are 96 extra girls, each share must be worth 48. So that's why and there are 20 shares altogether. 9 and 11 is 20. So that's 960 students. And with D3, 3 people, so I drew my picture. We're told that Aisha gets £18 more than Nathan, she gets 3 extra shares. Nathan gets 3, she gets 6. So her 3 extra shares are worth 18, so they're each worth 6. Everything is worth 6. Question asks, what does Jordan get? He gets 4 of those shares, so he gets £24. Now in class, we'll go through D1, but you might, if you're at home and you have a go at it, the answer's $63. I'd be interested if you were able to bring in your solution to that one and show it to your teacher, just so we know who is engaging in this at home and who's actually doing it properly. So yeah, have a go at that. See if you can show us why the answer to D1 is 63. Well done.